Welcome back to the Mad Genius Thesis, where we're kind of wrestling with this whole idea of creativity and mental illness. Like, are they connected? Today, we're going to dig into creativity, the magic synthesis.
By Silvano Arieti.
Yeah, exactly. And, he was a psychiatrist, right?
Right, yeah. So he's coming at this from a really interesting angle.
So that's got to give him, like, a really unique perspective on the whole, inner workings of the creative mind.
And he starts off, like, right out the gate with this idea that's kind of a head-scratcher.
Oh.
He says, like, true creativity, it isn't just about breaking all the rules and being totally, like, out there, original.
Okay.
He says there has to be some kind of structure there, some logic.
Okay.
Or else it's just, well, weird.
So, like, just throwing paint at a canvas.
Right,
That's
yeah.
make you, like, a groundbreaking artist.
Exactly. Like, his point is that for something to be creative, for it to really resonate, it needs to eventually be understood by other people, to connect with them on some level.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just bizarre.
So it's like walking this line between pushing boundaries and still, like, making sense.
Yeah, that's it. It's not just about being different for the sake of being different. It's about expanding our understanding of things, of the world.
Makes me think about Nietzsche.
Oh, yeah.
He compared writing Thus Spoke Zarathustra to, like, a sudden shift in music, a really profound one. And he described it almost like a mystical experience.
And, that's something that a lot of creative people talk about, this feeling of, like, almost being outside of themselves during the creative process.
Right.
Like, it's almost like something else is working through them, not something they're consciously controlling.
Yeah, it's a force of its own or something.
Right, exactly.
So how does Arieti explain all this then?
Well, he really digs into how our minds work, and he has this idea of 3 different levels of cognition.
Okay.
The primary, the secondary, and then the tertiary processes.
So break that down for me. What are these different processes?
Okay, so the primary process, he says, it's kind of like how a child thinks,
Yeah.
Really full of magical thinking and seeing connections between things based on, like, really simple similarities, not always logic. Like how a kid might say, the sun is shining because it's happy today.
Right. Makes sense to them.
Yeah, and then, we grow up. And then we develop that secondary process.
Which is where logic comes in, right?
Exactly. Like, that's the adult brain kicking in, helping us figure out cause and effect and making sense of the world, in a more complex way.
So where does creativity fit into all of this?
Well, that's where this tertiary process comes in. And this is really Arieti's big idea,
Okay.
It's this kind of fusion of the first two, this magic synthesis, where those childlike leaps of imagination, that primary process thinking,
Right.
they meet the grounding force of adult logic.
Right. So you're saying that true creativity it's like blending those two things.
Yeah, basically. It's what lets, artists and musicians and writers and even scientists to really break new ground, but at the same time, still making sense. They tap into that intuitive way of thinking, but then they shape it with reason and structure.
This makes me think about those aha moments when you suddenly see a connection you never noticed before.
Yeah.
Is that the tertiary process at work, you think?
It could be. Like, how those moments often happen when you're relaxed, maybe you're taking a shower or daydreaming. You're not, like, actively trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
But your mind's still making those connections in the background.
Arieti calls that
Paleologic thinking.
Yeah, paleologic thinking. And he describes it as this kind of primitive way of thinking where, like, things are considered equal because they share traits, not because of strict logic.
He gives this example of a schizophrenic patient who said, I'm a virgin, Mary was a virgin, therefore I am Mary.
Okay, that definitely sounds illogical. But how does that, like, relate to creativity?
Well, what's wild is that poets use this type of thinking all the time.
Oh, really?
In metaphors.
Right.
Think about Blake's poem, The Sick Rose, the worm destroying the rose.
Yeah.
Becomes this powerful symbol of love and loss.
Right.
That's paleologic thinking,
Yeah.
It's giving this deeper meaning to a simple image.
So poets are using, like, a kind of illogical thinking
In a way, yeah.
to create deeper meaning. That's pretty trippy.
It is, and it makes you wonder, like, what's driving these artists to make those kinds of connections.
Yeah.
And Arieti gets into the whole world of motivation, and he actually kind of diverges from Freud here,
Oh.
He says it's not just about, like, these unconscious desires that are bubbling up.
So what is driving that creative fire then? According to Arieti, I mean.
He believes it's a yearning for an ideal, a striving for something that transcends the everyday, the mundane.
Okay.
That's what fuels that creative process. Like, think about Dante and his love for Beatrice.
Yeah.
They barely even knew each other, but she became this huge inspiration for, his masterpiece, The Divine Comedy.
So it's not just about expressing yourself then. It's about reaching for something bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Like something beyond just our everyday experience.
It's about that drive to connect with something larger than yourself.
Yeah.
To find meaning and beauty in the world.
Right.
And that drive, that longing, it can be like incredibly powerful fuel for that creative fire.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It kind of suggests that, creativity.
Yeah.
It isn't just about talent or skill, but also about a certain, a certain mindset.
Absolutely.
Way of seeing the world.
Arieti really emphasizes the importance of cultivating that mindset, of fostering the conditions that let creativity really, blossom. And he says that goes beyond just the individual.
Oh, okay.
It's about creating a creativogenic society.
A creativogenic society. So what does that even mean?
Well, he identifies these 9 social factors that he thinks really foster creativity, like tolerance for different viewpoints, early exposure to different fields of knowledge, and prioritizing scholarship over just, economic success.
So it's not just about being born with that creative spark.
Right.
It's about having the right environment.
Yeah, exactly.
To nurture it.
He's saying that the environment we're raised in, the values we're exposed to, the opportunities we have to really explore and experiment, they all play a huge role in shaping our creative potential.
This makes me think about his analysis of the increase in Jewish Nobel laureates.
Oh, yeah.
After the emancipation of Jews in Europe.
Yeah, right.
He uses that to kind of illustrate how social conditions can directly impact, creative output.
Yeah, for sure.
So it wasn't like a biological thing.
Right.
It was a social and cultural shift that really opened up all these new possibilities.
Exactly. It gave these Jewish individuals the freedom and the opportunity to pursue all these intellectual and creative things that they had been restricted from before.
This is
a powerful example.
Yeah, really powerful. It suggests that we all have that potential for creativity, but whether that potential gets, realized, it depends on this really complex interaction between the individual and social factors.
And that's where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
If we understand those factors, can we create the conditions to unlock more creative potential?
Yeah.
Both in ourselves and in society as a whole.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It is, isn't it?
And it's one that we're going to keep exploring.
So we were talking about Arieti's idea of this creativogenic society.
Right, a society that really fosters creativity, encourages it.
Exactly. And it makes you think what are those things that make a society more or less, nurturing for creative people?
Yeah, what are the ingredients?
Well, Arieti, he actually lays out 9 specific factors. And it's a pretty diverse list. Some of them are about having access to education, resources, that kind of thing. But then others are more about the whole cultural atmosphere.
So it's not just about having the tools, it's about society valuing creative thinking.
Exactly. One of the key things he talks about is tolerance.
Oh, okay.
Tolerance for different viewpoints.
Makes sense.
A society that's really open to different perspectives that allows for debate. That's going to be more likely to have those creative breakthroughs, right?
Yeah, if everyone's afraid to challenge the status quo,
exactly,
or think differently, then you're not going to get much innovation.
No, exactly. And he also talks about early exposure.
Okay.
Being exposed to lots of different fields of knowledge.
Oh, interesting.
Because if you're only exposed to one narrow way of thinking, it's harder to make those creative leap, those leaps that often come from connecting ideas that seem totally different.
Right. It's like breaking out of those
the silos.
Yeah, those comfortable bubbles.
Right.
Where everyone's thinking the same way.
Exactly. It's about cross-pollination.
Yeah.
Seeing the world from different angles. And that kind of brings us to another crucial thing, which is being okay with uncertainty.
Oh.
And like being willing to experiment, you know. Arieti argues that that creativity really thrives in environments where people are okay with not knowing all the answers, where they're encouraged to take risks, you know, to explore.
You know, this really resonates with me. I think back to like being a kid, spending so much time just messing around.
Yeah.
Like, you know, building things, taking things apart, not really knowing what I was doing, but just exploring, experimenting.
Yeah.
And it seems like now we've gotten so focused on like efficiency and outcomes.
Yeah.
And we've lost some of that playfulness, that curiosity that feels so important for creativity.
That's a great point. You know, I think Arieti would totally agree with you. He talks a lot about the importance of allowing ourselves to daydream, to let our minds wander, because that's when, you know, those unexpected connections happen. You know, those aha moments, that spark new ideas.
So wait, are you saying we should like schedule daydreaming time, like put it in our calendars?
I mean, it doesn't have to be that formal, but it's about being more aware, right?
Yeah.
Of those little moments in the day where you can let your mind wander a bit.
Right.
Like maybe it's on your commute or doing the dishes or taking a walk or something. Okay. The point is, don't feel guilty about it. Yeah. You know, it's okay to let your mind wander.
It's funny because it almost feels like we have to like unlearn. Some of what we've been taught about, you know, productivity and focus.
Right.
We're so conditioned to think that daydreaming is like a waste of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Arieti's saying like, no, it's
essential.
It's crucial for creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. He also talks about being open to new experiences.
Okay.
Like, you know, stepping outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Okay.
Exposing yourself to different ways of looking at things.
So it's not just like daydreaming in isolation. It's actively seeking out new things.
Exactly. Like it could be anything. You know, traveling to a new country, taking a class in something you know nothing about.
Right.
The point is like challenge yourself.
Yeah.
You know, break out of those familiar thought patterns.
Right.
And expose yourself to new ideas.
This makes me think about what he was saying about cross-cultural exchange.
Yeah.
Like the mixing of different traditions, and ways of thinking. It seems like that can really like
it can be really fertile ground. For creativity.
Like think about the Renaissance.
Exactly.
That was a time of just incredible creative flourishing.
Huge explosion.
Yeah. And part of that was because of, you know, the rediscovery of classical learning and new ideas coming in from the East. Right,
exactly. It's amazing how these historical examples can really show us these timeless principles of creativity.
Yeah, it feels like there's a pattern there. You know, that when you see these periods of really big creative output, it often goes along with times of more cultural exchange, more openness.
Openness to new ideas,
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us back to this whole idea of cultivating a creative, ogenic mindset, both in ourselves and in the world around us. You know, it's about really fostering those conditions that allow creativity to thrive, tolerance, experimentation, and just, you know, a real appreciation for the power of the imagination.
And maybe most importantly, it's about recognizing that we all have that capacity for creativity. It's not just like a gift for a select few.
Exactly.
But it's this potential that's there.
Right.
Inside each of us.
Waiting to be unlocked.
Yeah. And that makes me think, like, what can we do as individuals to cultivate that creativity?
Yeah, good question.
Even if we don't live in that perfect, you know, creative ogenic society.
Right.
What are some practical things that we can do?
That is a really good question, and it's something that we're gonna to delve into a little bit more after a quick break.
Okay, so we're back, and we were talking about, you know, how to actually like cultivate creativity.
Yeah.
Even if we're not living in that perfect, you know, creative-genic society.
You're right. Exactly.
So what are some things, some practical things that we can do?
Well, one thing Arieti really emphasizes is giving yourself permission to just like daydream.
Oh, okay.
Which, you know, sounds simple enough, but in our busy world, we often feel like almost guilty,
Oh, yeah.
about taking time to just let our minds wander.
Yeah, I know I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
I feel like I should always be, like, doing something.
Right, exactly.
Productive, checking things off the to-do list.
Yeah, yeah. But those moments of, like, unstructured thinking,
Yeah.
they're actually really important.
Yeah. Okay.
For the creative process, because that's when those unexpected connections can come up to the surface, those like aha moments, those sparks that lead to new ideas.
So are you saying like we should like schedule in daydreaming time?
Yeah.
Like literally put it on our calendars?
I mean, it doesn't have to be that formal, but it's about being more mindful. Right, of those little pockets of time that you have during the day where, you can let your mind wander a little bit. Like maybe it's during your commute or when you're doing dishes or taking a walk. The key is just don't feel guilty about it. Right. Give yourself permission.
Yeah.
To let your mind do its thing.
It's funny because it almost feels like we have to like unlearn some of the things that we've been taught about, being productive and focusing all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're so conditioned to think that daydreaming is like a waste of time. But Arieti's saying
it's essential.
No, it's actually really important.
It is, yeah. He also talks about being open to new experiences.
Yeah.
Like stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Okay.
Exposing yourself to different ways of looking at things.
So it's not just like daydreaming in isolation.
Right.
It's actively like going out.
Yeah.
And seeking new things, new experiences.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it could be anything, really. I mean, traveling to a new country, taking a class in something that you know nothing about.
Right.
The point is to just challenge yourself. Yeah.
To break out of those familiar thought patterns that you have.
Right. Right.
And expose yourself to new ideas, new perspectives.
This makes me think about what he was saying about cross-cultural exchange.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the mixing of different traditions and ways of thinking.
Right.
It seems like that can be like
it can be really fertile ground.
Yeah.
For creativity.
Like, I don't know, think about the Renaissance.
Exactly.
That was such a time of like incredible creative flourishing.
Explosion.
Yeah. And part of that was because of, the rediscovery of classical learning and new ideas coming in from, the East.
Right, exactly.
It's amazing how those historical examples can really show us like these timeless principles of creativity.
Yeah.
It seems like there's this like pattern
that the times when you see like the biggest creative output often go along with times of increased cultural exchange.
Right. More openness.
Openness to new ideas.
Yeah, to new ideas.
And that brings us back to this whole idea of really cultivating that creativogenic mindset, both in ourselves, and in the world around us.
Yeah.
It's about fostering the conditions that allow creativity to thrive.
Yeah.
Tolerance, experimentation, and just a deep appreciation for the power of the imagination.
And maybe, most importantly, recognizing that we all have that capacity for creativity.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not just a gift that's reserved for, a special few.
It's a potential that we all have.
Right.
Just, waiting to be unlocked.
Arieti's work is
it's really a powerful reminder, I think.
It is, yeah.
That creativity isn't just about, making art or music or scientific discoveries.
Right.
It's about living a more, a more engaged life, more meaningful life.
Yeah.
A more, ultimately fulfilling life.
Yeah, I like that. It's about seeing the world with new eyes,
Yeah.
Making those unexpected connections.
Right.
And just embracing that magic.
Yeah.
That happens when we let our imaginations run free.
That's a
yeah.
That's a really beautiful way to put it.
I appreciate that.
It leaves me feeling like both inspired
Yeah.
and hopeful.
Good, good.
Inspired by, the incredible potential that's there inside all of us.
Right.
And hopeful that by understanding, these principles that Arieti is talking about, we can all like tap into that.
Yeah.
And live more creative lives.
Absolutely.
More connected lives and just more joyful lives, really.
That's what it's all about,
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about, and that is what the Mad Genius Thesis is all about too. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive, into this fascinating world of creativity.
Absolutely.
Well,